brothers and sisters, friends, hopefully not too many enemies. I hope everyone's feeling well and feeling inspired for a great change that, which does not kill you, definitely makes you stronger, as it's said. So I've been sitting here with the waters, sending my prayers and my gratitude to my favorite source, a spring nearby. So I welcome you all to share your hopeful messages, your solutions, your love, your prayers, your medicine, all the things that you feel. This is a forum holding space for that love intervention which is desperately needed. So hug the trees, they keep us grounded. Here's a black birch tree full of aspirin to reduce the inflammation of our society. So you can see all the lenticels, these breathing holes, and the young twigs of that are extremely medicinal and healing, make a great tea, don't dry very well, but when fresh can be made into an infused oil. Black birch is a really beautiful medicine. It's where the corporations stole aspirin from. This is one of the original sources of salicylic acid and is a really beautiful medicine. So there were 4 actual plants that started the aspirin industry, which birthed the pharmaceutical industry. They extracted alkaloids, salicylic acid, and methyl salicylate, coming from meadowsweet, filipendula, black birch, wintergreen, a few other plants. And that's really what started the takeover of nature and the patenting of isolated substances. So it's really something we should all consider, how to return to those sources that already exist. Of course, you know there's intelligence in whole plants that is lost in isolated extracts, so something to consider as we sit with the trees. So it's really important that everybody keep your prayers, keep your strength, look for community actions, do what you can to raise awareness. It's really important as well not to just further polarize the world in the sense of just blocking everyone who doesn't agree with you. You know, it's really important that we don't create a further and further divide to create some kind of civil war, meaning that anybody who disagrees with your stance you block, right? This is going to create a further division that we're all going to have to deal with in a much harsher way. So remember that truth alone prevails, as is said in Sanskrit, Satyam eva jayate. Jayate is victory, eva alone, Satyam is truth, right? The truth alone prevails. So it will just take time. So persistent, calm truth will continue to find its way through. The problem right now is that there's a battle for truth, essentially. Everyone thinks that their websites and their sources have the definitive truth and that everything else is bullshit. And when they discredit, you know, when we discredit everything else as irrelevant, we actually create a huge amount of confirmation bias. And that's illogical. That's not good use of intelligence or logic. So remember to try to calmly, rationally communicate these things to people, because what's happening right now is a great purge. People are finally purging out their aggression and angers and all the repressed violence that they've had within themselves. And this is genetic. This is colonialism inside of our souls. This is dominator culture. This is being dominated since before Rome, you know, being enslaved. We all have been in those positions. I don't care if you're Irish, Catholic, or whatever you are. We have all been in those positions. So we have this genetic pain. And really, Trump is some kind of accidental shaman pulling this stuff out, and it's very ugly to look at. It's completely horrendous. The question is, will it escalate? Will it be more and more violent? I've already heard stories of women getting their vaginas grabbed and being called liberals. I had some guy blow up on me for spreading misinformation and just being completely crazy, telling me he Jedi mind tricked me to have pain in my wrist. we're in such a very intense period of a huge purge. So I just want to remind you all that love always trumps hate, and it'll just take some time to really get to the position where we can have a calm conversation, versus right now it's just a polarized mess. I did also hear, please help us confirm this if it's true, I did hear last night in the anti-Trump protests that people did get violent, people did break things, there were cars flipped over and things like that. I did not see any of that happening. Is that true? Please let us know, because that of course is a very bad example, and you know that media is such that anybody making a bad example in these times will be the person on the front page news to turn everybody against them. Remember that in the 60s what occurred is that the hippies lost the people, right? So they were another fringe movement. So what will decide that is being able to be calm, collected, have good arguments, and to be able to actually communicate clearly. We need to develop an articulation about things. So Angie mentioned she saw burning trash cans and tires. Of course, that's very different than flipping cars over and smashing windows and burning and looting, which I've seen people accuse last night's anti-Trump protests to have. I also have seen that at Standing Rock they tried to accuse people of having Molotov cocktails and stuff, and of course nobody there said any of that was true. So just help us confirm, help us to be our news, and help us to really understand what's going on, and really help to steer this. We do have a tremendous impulse of revolution. This is a really good thing if we can have cultural leaders, people to rise up and help to give options. So I really want you to remember things like the teachings of Gandhi and the teachings of Martin Luther King, which taught nonviolent resistance for a reason. And those reasons, of course, can always be, I see a lot of people say, well, Gandhi was a this and Martin Luther King, didn't, ate alphabet soup and he's wrong. So remember that it doesn't matter if a human being has any value of hypocrisy. Take the doctrine, right? Take the understanding that was taught. So why is nonviolent resistance important is because it's the higher road, and it shows the correct in time, right? It shows that truth alone will prevail in time, and I can be calm, and if you fight me and you beat me up and I do not retaliate you, eventually your conscience will get you. And that's exactly what happened with Gandhi by the British police. They abused, some policemen beat him, and he just stood there and sadly took it, and that's actually went all over the news, and that's what really helped with India's independence. So Talia mentions, friends in New York City have told me they were direct witnesses to smashing glasses on the streets. Haven't heard of eyewitness car flipping. So it's really good to know that. Of course, any aggression is feeding the issue, right? So an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. All right, that's not going to work in this time when we know that the government has been waiting for this. The United States government has been training and passing bills and getting ready for a physical confrontation with its civilians. You are not going to win that way. You're not going to fight army tanks. You're not going to fight militarized police. We have to get that idea completely out of our head. We need to understand the sophisticated way of nonviolent resistance and protest. And so what I'm continuing to write about are ideas like banning petty plastics, as I just published on the Return to Nature page. Those are ideas that I think we can all get behind. I also started a group called Green Revolution Now. Please feel free to let that be your outlet. Let's build a consensus over one simple thing that everybody can get behind. We need a green energy policy. We need to switch to sustainable energy. It's not that hard. I saw Leonardo DiCaprio's movie Before the Flood. I recommend that. Take the facts as facts. Don't say, well, what is Leonardo DiCaprio's lifestyle? Who cares? Take what facts are facts. There are scientists who are studying certain phenomena. You can understand those for yourself. It does not mean that Leonardo DiCaprio is the highest level of non-hypocrisy or environmentalism. It means that people are exposing the understanding to us, right? And so it's very important for us to understand ecologically what's going on as part of the fuel to get the idea that that is some left-wing conspiracy propaganda. So global warming is a left-wing, you know, conspiracy propaganda started by George Soros. Okay, this is kind of where you're getting blocked. These people are just blinding themselves and not listening to anything. Remember that, okay, forget the idea of global warming. What's wrong with sustainable energy? What's wrong with free energy? Don't you want to have less energy bills? Don't you want a more sustainable paradigm? Do you want plastic trash all over the place? At least that can be an argument to get people into a consensus for a green revolution. There's no reason why not to if we focus on the shininess of the new technology, right? The benefit of it for everyone, and that really is reduction of costs, right? Just checking in some comments here. Patrick mentions, you know, this story has played itself out in history. Greece, Rome, Germany. The good news is, I don't know why, but people's comments get cut off if it's longer than, you know, 25 words or something, so I actually can't see the rest of your comment. But definitely, this is something where we have to understand, as Terence McKenna mentioned, the fractal nature of history, and it's cyclical. It is not a circle, but it is cyclical, and so there are energy nodes that are parallel, and so we're basically running in a program of pre-World War II, you know, Germany and Russia, and what we need to be careful of is to not cause further division, right? So if you block everybody who voted for Trump or whatever, you know, if you do that, if you play that game, then what it will force is an even more extremist faction come 4 years or 8 years from now, which will want more racism and more violence and more aggression. So it has to be met. It has to be met in a way that can handle the purging of a shadow, right? And that's a very delicate and careful thing. So we really need to be careful to not be the butt of violence, especially women at this time. I've heard such bad stories. We don't want to encourage, as Mahabar is saying, a civil war. You know, we don't want violence. That is not going to cause any sort of revolution that's lasting. And look at history. Every time there's a violent revolution, what happens is we go back to a worse political paradigm. You know, learn your history, understand. There's a great documentary series called The World at War, so check that out. You know, they talk a lot about how communism and socialism was built, and it was built very much at a time like this where a dictator, you know, really told people that they would fix things with no current plan, and people bought it, and now all the anger and the violence is coming out against who? You know, that's the real question. So we need to be really careful. But remember, sustainable energy is the way to go, and what that means is obviously not clean coal, obviously not nuclear energy. All that rhetoric needs to go away. We need to invest. Instead of building more pipelines, instead of more fracking, we need to invest that money. It's very simple, right? We need to invest that money in sustainable technology. So check out the work of Elon Musk and Tesla. He's making solar roofing, you know, which is just brand new stuff. And honestly, that technology has gone nowhere because it's completely oppressed and it's not paid for. So we need to start getting that money. We need to start demanding it. We need to start really pushing on the system to make a green energy transfer. So I invite you all to join, as I mentioned, the Facebook group Green Energy Now. Help us to develop working groups, methods, and understandings how to create prayer groups, how to create water blessing rituals, how to create mass actions, how to create demonstrations which have no violence in them. These are the things that are going to lead the culture into a transformation. Sending you all lots of love and blessings, and keep your prayers strong and your hearts pure, and continue to clean this negative energy off yourselves. Many blessings.